I really wanted to record tonight's video over by the pool. I thought it would have been really fun to have the backdrop of the pool. When I posted the pool on my Instagram story yesterday, I had a lot of friends who weren't familiar with the features of Chase Field asking me, what ballpark is this? Where is this? I had a couple friends even ask me, is this AI? Which honestly, given the state of affairs, isn't a inappropriate question to make, and I did tell all of them that yes, in fact, this was real. It's located in Phoenix, Arizona, where we have game time temperatures outside of 113 degrees apparently, but wasn't able to get in there. Both of the gates were locked. Maybe when the Giants return here in September, I'll have the opportunity to do that, but we're not here to talk about September, which is months down the road. We're here to talk about the last two nights of Giants baseball, yesterday of which they win 6-5, today they win 7-2. And we'll begin with yesterday's game, which kind of revolves not entirely around Camilo Doval, but it essentially is the Camilo Doval game for a variety of different reasons. So the way that game starts is Landon Roop begins his outing by pitching 4 scoreless innings. Looks really good. The offense provides him not with a ton of run support, but they do score 2 runs in the first inning. I believe they score another run in the third. And with the way that Roop was pitching, it honestly didn't look like manager Bob Melvin was going to need to use his bullpen much at all. Maybe the typical late leverage guys of Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers, and Camilo Doval, but it didn't look like it was going to be a super taxing game for the bullpen. And then in the bottom of the 5th inning, things just kind of got out of hand for Landon Roop. I'm forgetting the exact sequence of events. I think there was a homer, 2 walks, and then suddenly his night was over. And the one part of that game that I do remember is that Eric Miller entered the game with bases loaded, no outs, the Giants leading 3-1. And at that junction of the game, and given how the last couple of games have gone, that was a situation where, you know, you're trying to forecast what's happened. It would have made a lot of sense for the Diamondbacks to put up a crooked number in that inning. They take the lead that the Giants would never be able to overcome. But what Miller's able to do in that bottom of the 5th inning is limit the damage to just the 1 run. The Giants exit that inning with a 3-2 lead, and that kind of sets in motion what was a really excellent night for the bullpen up until the 9th inning. Spencer Bivens got the 6th inning, pitched the scoreless 6th with 2 strikeouts. Randy Rodriguez worked around a walk and a single to pitch a scoreless 7th. Tyler Rogers allowed an unearned run in the bottom of the 8th, but the Giants, I believe, were winning 5-2 up to that point. So it's a 5-3 lead going into the bottom of the 9th inning for Camilo Doval, who entering tonight had been struggling a little bit, had allowed multiple runs in 2 of his last 3 outings, but he gets a pretty sizable not entirely sizable, but he gets a comfortable-ish 2-run lead to work with, and that 2-run lead is instantly evaporated when after walking Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte, who was named an all-star starter prior to the game, hits just an absolute no-doubt 2-run homer into the right field stands. He tosses the bat. The Diamondbacks do their basketball celebration. The Chase Field is rocking. And not only is the game tied at 5 apiece, but they're doing this with no outs in the inning. So now they have a golden opportunity to not only tie the game in the 9th, but win the game in the 9th. But Doval is able to hunker down. He's able to retire the next 3 batters that he faces, but ultimately goes back to the dugout with the damage having been done. The game is tied at 5. The Giants are able to take a 6-5 lead in the top of the 10th inning. And instead of going to Ryan Walker, instead of going to, I think their other options were maybe Mason Black, Joey Lucchesi. I really doubt Melvin really entertained the idea of Mason Black in particular going out, just given he hadn't been used at the major league level this season. Melvin sends Doval out back for the 10th inning. It's no longer a save situation since he already blew the save in the bottom of the 9th inning, but Doval had only thrown 13 pitches in the bottom of the 9th inning, hadn't thrown 2 innings since I think it was July of 2022, and Melvin told us after the game that if the Giants took the lead in the top of the 10th inning, Doval was going to get the opportunity to close out the game in the bottom of the 10th, and that's exactly what he did. I can't remember the sequence of events off the top of my head, but he secures the save. He's able to redeem himself for what happened in the bottom of the 9th inning. Again, not a save, but he closes out the game. The Giants snap their 4-game losing streak with a 6-5 win, and they guaranteed themselves at the very minimum that they would leave the desert still in 3rd place in the NL West, which brings us to today. Given everybody that the Giants used yesterday, again, Miller, Bivens, Rogers, Rodriguez, and Doval, the Giants were looking at a much more significantly depleted bullpen tonight compared to yesterday. Yesterday, they had pretty much everyone at their disposal. Today, Doval was likely down. Rodriguez and Rogers, maybe not even entirely down, but I think Melvin would have leaned more towards going to guys like Lucchesi, maybe Mason Black, Ryan Walker definitely in that mix to just ensure that, depending on the situation, again, very situation dependent, not using his high leverage bullpen arms too much. I guess we really never found out exactly how that unfolded because Robbie Ray ended up pitching the second complete game of his career, the last one, ironically enough, being for the Arizona Diamondbacks back on May 30th, 2017. And it's just a phenomenal outing by Robbie Ray. The only two blips on his resume was a pair of solo homers allowed to Eugenio Suarez in the bottom of the fifth inning and Ketel Marte in the bottom of the ninth inning. And as the first couple innings unfolded, it looked like we may have been early witnesses to potential history unfolding because Ray retired the first 12 batters that he faced. The 13th batter that he faced was Suarez, who lined a solo homer over the left field fence. But at that point in time, even with the solo homer, the Giants offense had given Ray a lot of support. Even with that Suarez homer, they were leading 4-1. They would lead as much as 7-1. And going into the bottom of the ninth inning, Ray was only at 76 pitches. I started looking up on StatHead the fewest pitches needed for a complete game in Giants history. I wanted to see how many guys have thrown a complete game in 90 pitches or fewer. Just given how efficient Ray had been through those first 8 innings, it wasn't outlandish to think that he would have been able to do so. But that ninth inning definitely it got not out of hand per se, but it was the most taxing inning that he had the entirety of that game. Again, begins that inning with 76 pitches, begins the frame by getting Alek Thomas to ground out, but then he allows a solo homer to Ketel Marte. Giants still leading 7-2 at that point, but then Geraldo Perdomo is able to draw a 9-pitch walk that really increases Ray's pitch count. I can't remember what it was at the end of the 9-pitch walk, but that prompts pitching coach J.P. Martinez to go out to the mound, have a mound visit, and then we see the Giants bullpen starting to stir. Spencer Bivens starts to get loose. Eric Miller starts to get loose. And Melvin told us after the game that Randal Grichuk was going to be Ray's last hitter. So with one out in the bottom of the ninth inning, Ray effectively had 3 more batters. That would have been Gurriel, Suarez, and Grichuk. If he's not able to end that game with Grichuk, or at least he had 3 batters to get 2 outs. That was the scenario. And Ray ensured that Melvin never had to get up from his seat in the dugout, gets Gurriel to fly out, and then freezes Suarez with a 95 up and in to complete the second career complete game of his career. And the last one that he had was on May 30th, 2017. Again, he was a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He did it against the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that I used to cover. Not during 2017. It's May 2017. I think I was a freshman in college. But 2017 was also the one and only year that Robbie Ray was an All-Star, and it's kind of crazy considering that Ray won the Cy Young Award in 2021. And with tonight's outing, Ray continues to build his case for his own All-Star candidacy. I can't remember the amount of I want to say it's 107 1/3 innings, a 2.62 ERA, striking out more than 9 batters per 9 innings. I believe he's one of 5 pitchers in the National League with at least 100 innings pitched with a sub-3 ERA. So checking a lot of the boxes that you would see of someone deserving of an All-Star game. Now, as far as whether or not he's going to get in, it's hard to project. I think it's safe to say that Logan Webb is going to be an All-Star given that he's leading the National League in innings, has the 2.62 ERA. I want to say it's 127 strikeouts, has the best FIP in the National League as well. So it feels pretty, unless something crazy happens in Sacramento, presumably that's the next time Webb would start. Webb's candidacy does seem pretty locked in. Ray, a little more ambiguous. It's not super unrare to see multiple starting pitchers from the same team at the All-Star game. I think we saw that with the Braves and the Phillies last year. But Ray, regardless of whether or not Ray earns his second career All-Star appearance, The last 3 months have really affirmed that when healthy, Robbie Ray is one of the best starting pitchers, one of the best left-handed starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. And it's a status that Ray hasn't really had in quite some time. Obviously, he underwent the Tommy John surgery in 2023. He only had the one start with the Seattle Mariners in 2023, gets traded from the Mariners to the Giants prior to the 2024 season, spends most of 2024 rehabbing, makes 7 starts, but considering he's coming off the Tommy John surgery, no one's really expecting him to be a load-bearing ace who's throwing 6 or so innings every 5 or so days. But this season was, and we talked about this a lot going back to spring training, this was his first fully healthy season since 2022. And when we talked to him after the game, he said that, talking to other guys who've undergone Tommy John surgery, it's in that 18 to 20 mark post-surgery that guys really start to feel like themselves again. And spring training kind of marked that point for Ray. That's when he really started to feel like himself again. And as we've seen over the course of this entire year, Ray has been that anchor right next to Logan Webb at the top of this rotation. And even given some of the inconsistencies by other members of the starting rotation, the injury to Justin Verlander, Ray and Webb have really ensured that 2 out of every 5 days or 3 out of every 7 days, in any given week, the Giants can expect to get all-star quality starting pitching from both Logan Webb and Robbie Ray. Again, will Robbie Ray be an all-star? Will Logan Webb be an all-star? We'll figure out the answer to that question in a couple days. But purely based on how Ray has pitched over the course of these last couple months, and especially given how he pitched tonight, he's certainly a deserving candidate.